They lied to you about God. The God you were taught to fear, the distant being in the sky, is not the true God at all. The only God you will ever know is your own I am, your own awareness of being. When you discover this, chains break, life changes, and freedom, real freedom, begins here. In these 2 hours, I will reveal to you what religion, society, and even your own doubts have hidden. That God is not outside you, but within you as your own awareness. You will learn how to free yourself from fear, guilt, and limitation by claiming the divine name, I am. You will see how every desire, every circumstance, and every bondage is nothing more than your own assumption made visible. And when you grasp this truth, you will never again beg, plead, or wait for God. You will stand in the authority of being God. I know the frustration of searching for answers. You may have prayed for years and seen nothing. You may have tried affirmations, visualizations, or rituals that left you empty. You may even have wondered if God hears you at all. I understand, because I too once walked in darkness. But I found the key, the simple key hidden in plain sight. That key is this: consciousness is the only reality, and what you assume in the silence of your own heart is what the world must mirror back to you. This is not theory. This is law. And tonight, I will not only tell you, I will show you how to apply it so that you walk free forever. Across these hours, I will take you step by step into the truth that has been hidden since the foundation of the world. First, we will uncover what God truly is, not a distant being, but your own I am. Then we will strip away the lies that have kept you bound, the belief in a God outside yourself, the slavery of begging and pleading. Next, we will enter the living practice, how to assume the wish fulfilled, how to pray in the true sense, how to ignore the evidence of the senses, and how to stand still and know that I am God. Finally, I will reveal the greater mystery, the promise, the divine unfolding within you that shows you are one with God. Along the way, I will open scriptures in a way you have never heard them before, not as history, but as your own psychological drama. Stay with me, for before this journey ends, you will know who you are, and you will walk free. You've heard me say it already, they lied to you about God. And now we must go deeper into what that really means, because unless this lie is torn out by the root, you'll keep living as a servant when you were born to reign as God. Most of the world still believes in a God far away, a God who sits above the clouds, a God who keeps record of your mistakes and judges you from a distance. And so men tremble before this image they themselves created, not knowing that the very one they fear is nothing more than the shadow of their own imagination. And because they believe in a distant God, they remain powerless, always begging, always pleading, never knowing the true name and nature of the one who lives within them. Think about it. If God were somewhere outside of you, if God were only in the sky or locked away in temples made with hands, then you would forever be a slave to circumstance. You would forever have to wait for favor, for blessing, for some outside power to take pity on you. And that is exactly the prison most of the world is still in today. They pray to a God out there, and because they believe he is far away, their prayers fall to the ground empty. They beg and nothing happens. They cry and nothing changes. And they conclude either that God is cruel or that they themselves are unworthy. But the truth, the living truth, is this: the God they cry to never existed, for the only God you will ever know is your own I am. This is why the words spoken to Moses at the burning bush are the greatest revelation ever given to man. When he asked for the name, when he asked, "Whom shall I say sent me?" the answer was not Jehovah, it was not Allah, it was not some grand title in the sky. It was simply, "I am that I am. Tell them I am has sent you." That is the eternal name of God. And that name is your own awareness of being. Right now, as you listen to me, you are aware that you are. That invisible sense of existence, that silent declaration, I am, without adding anything to it, that is God himself. Before Abraham was, I am. Before this world ever took form, before your body drew breath, I am. That presence is the root of all that is. Now, this truth may shock you at first. You may even feel resistance, because the old lie is strong. You were told since childhood that God is outside, that you must please him, that you must live up to rules or risk his punishment. But I tell you that image was formed by men who did not know. They saw power and could not understand it. They saw imagination at work but could not believe it belonged to them. And so they projected God onto the sky and then bowed before their own creation. That is why Scripture says they worship the creature rather than the Creator. The creature is the image of God outside of yourself. The Creator is the I am within you. Now, why does this matter? Because until you accept that the true God is your own I am, you will never be free. You'll always look outside for permission. You'll always wait for help that never comes. You'll always live small when you were meant to live as the operant power. But once you see it, once you dare to say within yourself, I am is God, and that I am is seated in me, everything changes. You stop waiting and you start assuming. You stop begging and you start declaring. You stop fearing and you start knowing. That is the difference between bondage and freedom, between slavery and sonship. And let me make it plain with something you can see right now. Look at your life. Look at every circumstance around you. Is it not true that it reflects the story you have told yourself about who you are? If you have believed yourself weak, life has shown you weakness. If you have assumed you are unloved, life has mirrored back rejection. If you have lived under the lie of a God outside yourself, then your world has proven the lie, because it has kept you powerless. But the moment you shift, the moment you dare to embrace that the God of Scripture is the God of your own imagination, the mirror changes, the story changes, and the world must obey the truth. That is why I say to you now, stop worshiping a God out there. Stop bowing to idols made by men. The truth is nearer than hands and feet, closer than breathing. The truth of God is your own awareness of being. And when you accept this, when you live from this, you will know that you have been free all along. And if this is true, if God's eternal name is I am, then what does it mean every time you say those two little words about yourself? That's where most people miss it. And yet it's the most powerful secret you'll ever learn. And if you truly hear me, if you've allowed that first veil to fall away, then you will begin to see the staggering implication. The name of God is the very name you call yourself by. For every time you utter the words I am, you are pronouncing the sacred name that was revealed at the burning bush, and you are clothing it with a garment, a quality, a state of being, and that garment is the form your world must take. This is why you can never speak lightly when you say I am. For when you say I am sick, you have joined the eternal name of God with sickness, and that union must be expressed in the body. When you say I am poor, you have wedded the eternal presence to poverty, and your world will obey. When you say I am unloved, you have decreed with the tongue of God himself that loneliness is your portion, and so it must be. Do you see the power? The whole of creation is hidden in these two simple words. Now, most people think their words are just noise, empty vibrations moving through the air. But I tell you the truth. The words you speak in the silence of your own heart are living seeds planted in the soil of the subconscious. And the soil does not argue. It does not debate. It does not ask whether you meant it or not. It simply receives what the conscious impresses upon it and then brings forth the harvest. The subconscious is the womb of creation. And whatever you attach to I am is conceived and carried until the day it is born as your experience. This is the law. This is why so many suffer and do not know why. They say in jest, I am always unlucky. I am always broke. I am always overlooked, not knowing that in saying so they are taking the very name of God in vain. And to take it in vain is not a matter of cursing with your lips, but of attaching it to what you do not wish to see, and then being forced to watch it come alive. But the opposite is also true. And here is the key that sets you free. When you consciously and deliberately say, I am wealthy, even though the evidence of your senses denies it, you have planted a seed of wealth. And if you hold it, if you feel it, if you live in it, then the world cannot help but yield the harvest. When you dare to say, I am healthy while your body aches, you are binding the eternal name of God to health, and health must come forth. When you whisper within yourself, I am loved, even when no one calls, You are decreeing with the voice of God that love is your reality, and in due season the world will reflect it. This is why the ancients warned, let the weak man say, I am strong. They knew the secret. They knew that by declaring, I am strong, you were not lying. You were not pretending, you were calling the eternal name by a new garment. And because the I am is God, that garment must be worn. The world cannot resist it, for it is not your little words doing the work. It is the eternal I am fulfilling itself. Scripture says, so shall my word be that goes forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void. That word is I am. Whatever follows it must accomplish that which it is sent to accomplish. Now, I know what you may be thinking. You may say, but I have said these things before. I have affirmed, I have declared, and yet nothing happened. And I tell you, it is not enough to speak them once and then go back to the old garment. If a man plants a seed, but every day digs up the ground to see if it has sprouted, he will never see a harvest. It is persistence. It is faith. It is assuming that what you have declared is already true, that makes the seed take root and grow. You must water it with feeling. You must clothe yourself in it until it feels natural. And then you must walk as though it were already accomplished. This is what it means to hallow the name of God. Not to repeat empty phrases, not to bow with lips while the heart remains in unbelief, but to sanctify every I am with the garment you wish to see alive in your world. So I ask you now, what have you been calling yourself? What have you been attaching to your I am? Because if you will trace your words back, you will see your world is nothing more than the echo of the names you have given yourself in the silence. And here is the good news. You can change it at any moment. Right now, this very breath, you can take the name of God and attach it to strength, to wealth, to love, to freedom. And if you remain faithful, your life will mirror it with mathematical precision. And if the name of God is I am, if every word you join to it becomes flesh, then it follows that God is nothing distant at all, but your own awareness of being. For what is I am but the feeling of being aware, the sense that you exist? Let me show you how this awareness itself is God. And so we come to the great unveiling, the truth that collapses every false image of God in the truth. So simple a child could grasp it, and yet so radical that the wise of the world stumble over it and call it blasphemy. If the name of God is I am, if the eternal word spoken at the burning bush is your own self-declaration of being, then what does this mean? It means that God is not a figure on a throne above the clouds, not a deity carved in stone or painted on a stained glass window, not a distant ruler handing out blessings and curses as he pleases. God is your own awareness of being, that invisible sense of existence that says quietly within you, I am, without describing what it is that is God. Before you added a name, before you added a story, before you attached conditions that bear pure sense of being aware, that is the creator of heaven and earth. Think with me for a moment. Strip everything away. Forget for a moment your age, your name, your history. Forget your body, your job, your relationships. Forget even the room you sit in. And ask yourself, what remains? There is still the undeniable sense that you are. You may not say what you are, but you cannot deny that you are. That silent knowing I exist, I am aware, I am conscious, that is the eternal root of all. And this is what the world has missed. They have worshipped the forms while ignoring the substance. They have bowed before idols while overlooking the very presence animating their own breath. But I say to you, this awareness is God, and there is no other. This is why Scripture declares, be still and know that I am God. Not, be still and know about God. Not, be still and wait for God to appear. But be still and recognize that the very awareness that is thinking, hearing, and feeling in this moment is none other than God himself. That is why Paul could boldly write, do you not realize that Jesus Christ is in you? And what is Christ but the power and wisdom of God awakening as your own imagination? Do you see now why the gospel is called good news? Because it declares you are not a beggar. You are not an orphan. You are not at the mercy of chance or the cruelty of men. You are God in action, clothed in human form, discovering yourself through the drama of life. Now, the mind resists this because the mind is being trained to look outside. It wants to find God in the sky, in holy men, in books, in rituals. But hear me, Nothing comes from without. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Your world is nothing but consciousness objectified. Every condition you see is simply the shadow cast by the state of awareness you have occupied. Change the awareness, and the shadow must change. This is why all the striving, all the struggling, all the endless effort to rearrange the outer world is in vain. You cannot change the shadow by wrestling with it. You must turn back to the light within. You must change your awareness of being, and then the shadow of the outer world will rearrange itself without resistance. And isn't this what you've already experienced, though you may not have noticed? Think of the times you assumed the worst, when you told yourself, I know this will go badly, and lo and behold it did. Think of the times you carried a mood of joy, of expectancy, of excitement, and suddenly opportunities seemed to flow without effort. That was not luck. That was not fate. That was your awareness, clothed in a mood, outpicturing itself as fact. This is the great law at work in every moment of your life. It never sleeps. It never takes a day off. Your world is consciousness made visible. So what does this mean for you right now? It means you are free. It means you no longer have to chase after God, for God is your own awareness of being. It means you no longer have to beg for answers, for the answer is in the state you occupy. It means you can dare to assume that you are already what you wish to be. And because your awareness is God, the world must bend to it. Do not say, one day it will happen. Do not say, perhaps if I pray long enough. No, say within yourself, I am, and know that your assumption is the seed, which the womb of the subconscious must bring forth in its own appointed season. This is why the Bible is not history, but a psychological drama. Every character, every story, is speaking of states of consciousness within you. Adam, Moses, David, Christ, all are aspects of your own mind, played out in symbolic form. When you read the scriptures as outer history, you miss the power. But when you read them as your own inner journey, the veil is lifted, and you see that the whole book is the revelation of God awakening as you. So I say again, God is your awareness of being. When you say, I am, you are declaring his name. When you imagine, you are exercising his power. When you assume, you are decreeing his will. You are not separate. You never have been. You and the Father are one, though the Father is greater than the conditioned self you currently imagine yourself to be. Lift up your awareness, change your state, and you will see a new world take form around you. For as within, so without. And if this is true, if your awareness is God and your world is only its shadow, then why do so many still live in chains? Why do they fear? Why do they beg? Why do they suffer? Because they are still bound by the old belief, the lie of separation. Let us tear down that prison next. If you have followed me this far, then you know already why so many remain bound, why the truth that should have set them free has instead been buried beneath centuries of tradition, doctrine, and fear. Men created a religion of fear, and instead of revealing the living God within, they clothed him in the robes of a tyrant, a judge seated high above the clouds, with books of records in his hands, keeping account of every mistake, waiting for the day of reckoning to cast you into punishment. And the people, trembling before this image, became slaves to their own creation, bowing before the idol of their imagination while never knowing the power of imagination itself. They taught you that you are small, weak, unworthy, that you must strive to please a God outside yourself. And in believing them, you consented to bondage. Do you not see it? Fear has been the chain. Fear has been the weapon. Fear has been the great lie, whispered from pulpits and thrones alike. Fear God, fear judgment, fear punishment, fear death. And in that fear, you surrendered the most precious gift, the knowledge of your own I am. You gave your power away. You looked to men in robes, to institutions, to rituals, thinking they could bridge the gap between you and God. But there is no gap. There never has been. The kingdom of heaven is within you, not in a church, not in a temple, not in a book, but within you. But as long as you believe the lie, you will keep living as though you are separated, as though you are cast off, as though you are forever guilty. Think of the toll this belief has taken on humanity. Look at the wars fought in the name of God. Look at the countless souls who lived in guilt and shame, terrified of their own thoughts, convinced that desire itself was sin. This is not freedom. This is bondage. And the tragedy is that all along, Scripture itself was declaring the opposite. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, not bind you in fear, not crush you under guilt, but make you free. Yet how many ever heard those words? How many truly believed them? Very few, because the voice of tradition was louder. The voice of fear drowned out the whisper of truth within. But hear me now. The truth of God is not fear, but freedom. The truth of God is not punishment, but power. The truth of God is not a distant tyrant, but your own awareness of being. And when you see this, you no longer bow in trembling. You no longer live under the shadow of judgment. You stand upright as the sun, the daughter of the Most High, which is to say, as God awakening in human form. You realize that salvation is not escaping hell in the future, but awakening to your divinity now. You realize that forgiveness is not granted by a priest, but by yourself the moment you identify with a new state. You realize that eternal life is not a reward far off in the sky, but the discovery that the I am in you never began and can never end. This is the shift that turns the world upside down. When you were under religion of fear, you prayed as a beggar, you lived as a slave, you obeyed as one under threat. But when you awaken to the truth, you pray as a creator, you live as a son, you move as one clothed in authority. You stop asking if God is pleased with you, and you begin declaring what you please to see in your world. That is freedom. That is the gospel. And that is what has been hidden from you by those who profit from fear. So I say to you, cast aside the chains. Refuse to believe in a God who terrifies. Refuse to kneel before the idol of separation. Refuse to accept guilt as your inheritance. For your true inheritance is freedom. Your true inheritance is power. Your true inheritance is God Himself, and He is your own I am. And the moment you dare to believe this, the moment you dare to live from this, the prison doors swing open, and you walk out into the light of day. But even when a man escapes the fear of religion, there remains another jailer, the belief that he is at the mercy of circumstances, that the outer world has power over him. Let us tear down that illusion now. And now we touch upon the second prison, the one that holds even those who are broken free of religious fear, the silent jailer that keeps men bowed in spirit, though they walk with heads held high. It is the belief that life is governed by circumstances, that man is the helpless victim of external events, that fate and chance and the will of others dictate his destiny. And as long as you hold this belief, you remain bound, for you have chained yourself not to a tyrant in the sky, but to the shifting winds of the world around you. You look at the bills on your table and say, this is why I cannot prosper. You look at your body and say, this is why I cannot be well. You look at the faces of others and say, this is why I am unloved. And without knowing it, you worship the shadow rather than the light, the effect rather than the cause. But I tell you, the world you see with your senses is nothing more than consciousness objectified. It is the mirror of your own inner state. And no mirror has power to act on its own. It can only reflect what stands before it. If you do not like the reflection, you do not smash the mirror. You change the face it reflects. This is why I say to you, leave the mirror and change your face. Leave the outer world and change your inner state. For the outer world is but the echo, the shadow, the testimony of your awareness. Consider it for a moment. Have you not seen this in your own life? Have you not noticed that when you carry yourself in a mood of confidence, the world seems to bend in your favor? Strangers smile, doors open, opportunities arise. And when you sink into a state of despair, is it not true that the world seems to mock you, that even those who once favored you now turn away? What changed? Not the world, but your awareness of being. The state you occupy within yourself casts its shadow outward, and the world obeys. This is the great secret that most miss. You are never the victim of circumstances. You are always the victim of your own inner conversations, your own assumptions, your own unseen states. And the moment you accept this, the chains fall away. For if the cause is within you, then so also is the power to change it. If poverty is but the reflection of an inner state, then wealth too is but a change of state away. If sickness is but the garment worn by your I am, then health too is waiting to be assumed. If rejection is but the echo of an inner belief, then love too is waiting to be claimed. Yet how many continue to fight shadows? They work and strive, pushing against circumstances as though the mirror had life of its own. They exhaust themselves, rearranging the surface, never realizing that until the cause is changed within, the shadow must return to its former shape. And so they fall into despair. They say, "This is my lot, this is my fate, this is just how life is." But I tell you, there is no fate but your state. There is no destiny but your assumption. Change it, and the world must change in obedience. Do you see now the tragedy? Men who could be free live like prisoners because they will not believe that the cause is within. They wait for circumstances to shift before they dare to feel different, not knowing that feeling different is the very key that shifts circumstances. They say, "When I have more money, I will feel secure. When I meet the right person, I will feel loved. When my body is healed, I will feel strong." And so they wait, not realizing that life is waiting for them. For the law is reversed. Feel secure, and money comes. Feel loved, and the right person appears. Feel strong, and the body obeys. So I urge you now, stop bowing before circumstances. Stop giving them the authority they do not possess. Stop saying, "This is happening to me," and begin to say, "This is happening through me." You are the cause. You are the root. You are the operant power. The world is but the shadow cast by your awareness of being. Lift that awareness. Assume the state you desire, and the shadow must bend to your will. This is not philosophy. This is law. As certain as gravity, as precise as mathematics. Consciousness is the only reality, and circumstances are its servant. And yet, even when a man learns this, even when he knows he is not the victim of circumstances, he often clings to the old story, the old identity, the old self that has kept him bound. And until that self dies, he cannot live in the freedom he seeks. Let us look now at the death that gives birth to life. And here, beloved, is the great turning point in the journey. For it is not enough to know that God is your own I am. It is not enough to know that the outer world is only the reflection of your inner state. For until you are willing to die to the old self, the self you have carried like a garment of rags, you cannot live in the freedom you long for. This is the mystery hidden in the language of Scripture. For every page is telling the same story, that unless a seed fall into the ground and die, it remains alone, but if it dies, it brings forth much fruit. Death in this sense is not the end of your breath or the lowering of your body into the earth. No, it is the death of your old concept of self, the death of every belief, every assumption, every story that has chained you to a lesser life. Think of the old self you have carried. It is the self that says, "I am poor, I am weak, I am unloved, I am unlucky, I am sick, I am not enough." And though you may despise that self, you still cling to it, for it feels familiar, it feels safe, it feels known. And so you repeat its story, you identify with its limitations, and because you refuse to let it die, it rises again every morning to bind you. But hear me, you cannot put new wine into old skins. You cannot patch the old garment with new cloth. You must lay it aside completely. You must crucify the old self with all its claims, all its limitations, all its cries of weakness, and you must bury it once and for all. This is why the cross is central to the mystery. The cross is not an event in history. It is the psychological drama of every man who dares to let his old self be nailed, who dares to say, "That is not who I am anymore." And yes, it feels like death, for the mind cries out, "But this is who I have always been. This is my story. This is my identity." Yet you must persist. You must drive the nails through those lies. You must refuse to come down from the cross until the old self breathes its last, for only then can resurrection take place. Only then can the stone be rolled away. Only then can the new self rise, clothed in the garment of your desire, shining with the glory of your assumption fulfilled. Imagine, if you will, the caterpillar. It spends its days crawling, limited, bound to the ground. It has no wings, no beauty that the world admires. But hidden within is the pattern of transformation. And when the time comes, it surrenders itself to the cocoon. It allows the old form to die. There is no halfway. It cannot keep crawling and expect to fly. It must die completely to the caterpillar state, and in that death, the butterfly is born. So it is with you. As long as you cling to the story of the old self, you will crawl. But when you dare to let that story die, when you dare to say within yourself, I am not this any longer, I am something new, then the wings of your imagination open, and you rise. This is not a gentle process. The old self does not go quietly. It whispers. But this is who you are. This is reality. This is the truth. It will remind you of every failure, every scar, every moment of disappointment. It will parade the evidence of the senses before you like soldiers standing guard at the tomb. But I tell you, all of this is nothing but the ghost of a dying self. You must not answer it. You must turn away and fix your gaze on the new state, the new self, the new declaration of your I am. For as surely as the seed must die to bring forth fruit, as surely as the caterpillar must die to become the butterfly, so must the old self die for the new self to be born. And here lies the victory. The resurrection is certain. Once the old self is laid down, once the assumption of the new self is embraced and felt as real, life must answer. The tomb cannot hold you. The stone must roll away. The new state must rise and stand in the light of day. This is the eternal promise. If any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. Christ is the assumption of your fulfilled desire. To be in Christ is to wear the garment of your wish fulfilled. And when you clothe yourself in it and refuse to return to the old self, you rise as a new creation. So I ask you, are you willing to let the old self die? Are you willing to crucify the story that has bound you, to bury it without looking back, to surrender it completely in order to rise into the life you long for? For this is the path to freedom. This is the mystery of death and resurrection. This is the only way to step out of bondage into liberty, out of weakness into strength, out of despair into glory. The old self must die. The new self must rise. And that new self is born the very moment you dare to say with conviction, I am that. And now, having buried the old self, having dared to die to the story of limitation, we turn to the great law that raises the new self into being the law of assumption, the law that declares, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and it is done. And now we come to the heart of it, the foundation without which nothing can stand, the truth that overturns the wisdom of the world, and yet explains every event of your life with a precision more exact than any science. Consciousness is the only reality, not figuratively, not poetically, not as some lofty metaphor, but literally consciousness is the cause, the substance, the beginning and the end of all that is. Everything you call the outer world, every circumstance, every condition, every object you touch, every person you meet, is nothing more than consciousness objectified, your own awareness crystallized and projected outward onto the screen of space. And if this be true, and I tell you it is eternally true, then what you call reality is not fixed. It is not independent. It is not outside your control. It is the shadow cast by your inner state, the mirror reflecting your concept of self. To the man who understands this, life ceases to be a cruel game of chance. No longer does he look to fortune, to fate, to the stars, or to the opinions of men. He knows the root is within, and by changing the root, he changes the fruit. By altering consciousness, he alters reality. By lifting his inner state, he lifts the entire drama of his life. Look around you now. Everything you see is the harvest of some past assumption, some state once entertained within. The room you sit in, the relationships you have, the condition of your body, the balance in your bank, all are witnesses to your inner conversations, the silent declarations of your I am. You may not remember planting the seed, but the harvest cannot lie. The world is yourself pushed out, a grand mirror held up to your inner life. This is why men can live in the same city, walk the same streets, breathe the same air, and yet live in entirely different worlds, for each lies, not in the outer scene, but in the inner state he occupies. Now, this is a staggering truth, for it means there is no one to blame and no one to praise but yourself. It means chance is an illusion, fate a lie, accident a mask. It means your world is no respecter of persons. It respects only states. Enter a state, and the world must conform to it. Exit a state, and that world fades, replaced by another. Consciousness is the one and only reality, divided for the sake of creation into conscious and subconscious, into the male aspect that chooses and impresses, and the female aspect that receives and brings forth. Together they form the eternal law, conceived within, and it must be expressed without. But let me be clear. Consciousness does not create with effort, with struggle, with the sweat of the brow. It creates effortlessly, faithfully, automatically, according to the feeling impressed upon it. It does not argue, it does not reason, it does not question whether the feeling is good or bad, wise or foolish. It simply accepts what the conscious mind consents to as true, and it builds the world accordingly. And this is both the warning and the glory. For if you allow fear, doubt, or anger to clothe your I am, those states will take form in your life. But if you dare to assume joy, wealth, health, and freedom as present facts, those states too must take flesh and dwell among you. So I say again, consciousness is the only reality. The world of facts is only the past solidified. The future is already contained within the present assumption. And you stand as the operant power, free to choose this day whom you will serve, the old state of limitation or the new state of fulfillment. Choose, and you have already altered the course of your life, for the shadow must follow the light. And if consciousness is the only reality, then how does one impress it? How does one plant the seed that the subconscious must bring forth? This is the great mystery. And yet the answer is so simple, it is overlooked. The key is feeling. Feeling is the secret. And now, having laid the foundation that consciousness is the only reality, we must ask the question that has puzzled countless souls. If my world is consciousness objectified, how then do I shape that consciousness so that it brings forth the life I desire? What is the key by which I move from one state to another? And the answer, simple yet profound, is this. Feeling is the secret. Not words alone, not idle thought, not wishful dreaming, but feeling for it is only when an idea is felt as real, that it sinks down into the depths of the subconscious and germinates. The subconscious is the womb of creation, and it does not receive the seed of mere thought. It conceives only when the seed is clothed in feeling. You may repeat affirmations until your lips grow weary, but if you feel nothing when you speak them, they are but empty shells cast upon the surface of the sea. But let one single word be spoken with burning feeling. Let one assumption be felt in the depths of your being as already true, and the subconscious will accept it without question and begin to build it in secret. For the subconscious knows no argument. It does not analyze. It does not weigh probabilities. It simply accepts what the conscious mind feels to be true and sets about producing it in the outer world. This is why so many fail. They pray with words but feel lack. They affirm wealth but feel poverty. They declare health but feel sickness. And the subconscious, ever faithful, brings forth what is felt, not what is said. Think for a moment about your own life. Have you not seen how a single mood can shape an entire day? Wake up with the feeling that the world is against you, and everything you meet will seem to confirm it. Wake up with the feeling that today is blessed, that good is on its way, and suddenly doors open, smiles greet you, opportunities flow. It is not the outer world changing on its own. It is your feeling creating the conditions for the day. And the same is true of your larger life. The world you live in now is nothing more than the harvest of past feelings, past assumptions, clothed with emotion, impressed upon the subconscious, and now outpictured as facts. This is why Neville said so clearly, never entertain an undesirable feeling. For every feeling, once accepted, seeks expression. To feel I will be is to confess I am not. But to feel I am is to plant the seed of fulfillment. The difference between I will be and I am is the difference between delay and manifestation, between longing and realization. One pushes the desire away into the future, the other clothes it with present reality and demands expression. You must, therefore, train yourself to feel the wish fulfilled, to feel the state you long for, as though it were already here. That is the only way the subconscious accepts it as fact. And understand this. Feeling does not mean straining, nor does it mean forcing yourself to pretend. Feeling is the simple acceptance of the desire as already true. It is the inner sensation that says, yes, this is mine now. It is the quiet confidence, the inner ease, the naturalness of assuming that what you have imagined is already accomplished. When you pray, do not beg or plead. Instead, enter into the state of the answered prayer. Imagine the scene that implies its fulfillment and feel it as real. Let the tones of reality saturate the imaginal act until you can no longer distinguish between imagination and fact. In that moment, the subconscious accepts it, and the outer world must conform. So let this be engraved upon your heart. Feeling is the secret, not effort, not willpower, not the struggle of man against circumstances. Feeling. For the subconscious is moved by feeling alone. And because the subconscious creates your world, it follows that your world is nothing more than the crystallization of your feelings. Change the feeling, and you change the world. And if feeling is the secret, then how are we to use it? How are we to live so that every desire is already clothed in the garment of fulfillment? This is the art of living in the end, the great key by which the invisible becomes visible, the wish becomes fact. And now that you see feeling is the bridge, now that you know only what you feel, as real is planted in the deep of the subconscious, let us move to the practice that changes everything, the holy art of living in the end. For here lies the very key to manifestation, the secret by which every desire is already accomplished. To live in the end means to occupy within yourself the state you long for, as though it were already done. To so fully assume the wish fulfilled that you think from it, rather than of it, to stand in the middle of the scene your heart yearns for, and look out upon the world through its eyes, until it becomes your natural dwelling place. Consider the difference. To think of a desire is to place it outside yourself, to push it away into a future that never arrives. You imagine it vaguely. You say, one day I will have this, one day I will be that. And so you remain in the state of not having, not being, forever waiting, forever longing. But to think from the desire is to make it present, to clothe yourself in it now, to say, I am already this, I already have it. And from that state to feel and act and live. And because the law is faithful, because the subconscious accepts only what is felt as true, living from the end guarantees that the outer world must conform, though you know not how, and through channels you could never have devised. This is why I tell you not to concern yourself with the means. Do not ask, how will it happen? Who will bring it? By what door shall it arrive? Leave all that to the law. For imagination knows more than the wisdom of men. Your only task is to enter the end and dwell there, to feel it as real, to walk as though it were already accomplished. And if you will hold that end, if you will persist in it, then bridges of incident will be built across time and space to lead you effortlessly to its realization. Life itself will rearrange. People will move. Opportunities will appear. Circumstances will unfold in ways you could not have planned. And when the desire stands before you clothed in fact, you will marvel at how subtly and perfectly it came. I will share with you the story I have told before, for it illustrates this principle better than any argument. I longed once to return to my home in Barbados, but I had no money, no ticket, no visible means to make the journey. Yet I knew the law. So I refused to think of Barbados as a place far away that I hoped one day to reach. Instead, I thought from Barbados. I fell asleep night after night, imagining myself in my father's house, seeing the familiar rooms, smelling the scents, feeling the tropic air upon my skin. I walked the streets of Bridgetown in my imagination. I stood on the shore and heard the waves crash. I lived there in consciousness, though my body lay in a small room in New York. And after a time, circumstances conspired. My brother, moved by an unseen impulse, sent me a ticket. The way was provided, the trip was made, and I stood again in Barbados, just as I had done in imagination. Now, what brought this to pass? Was it chance? Was it mere coincidence? No. It was the law in action. I lived in the end, and the world rearranged itself to reflect my assumption. And what I did you can do. For the law is no respecter of persons. The same key that unlocked that door for me will unlock any door for you, if only you will use it faithfully. So I say to you now, choose the end you desire. See it clearly in your mind's eye. But more than that, feel it. Ask yourself, what would I see? What would I hear? What would I feel if this were true now? And then enter into that state. Walk in it, speak from it. Let it be more real to you than the evidence of the senses. And though the outer world may mock you, though appearances may deny it, hold fast to the end. For the end will pull you to itself. The end contains within itself every step necessary for its fulfillment. To live in the end is to live in freedom. It is to declare that the battle is already won, the prayer already answered, the desire already fulfilled. It is to take God at His word. Whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Notice the tense. Believe that you have received, not that you will one day receive. That is living in the end. That is the faith that makes all things possible. That is the secret by which dreams become reality. So do not wait. Do not postpone. Do not look for signs to confirm it before you dare to believe. Enter the end now. Live there now. And let the world catch up to your assumption. For if you will dwell in the end with feeling, the end will dwell in you. And what you have claimed within will one day stand before you in flesh and blood. And yet, even as you live in the end, there may be chains that hold you memories of the past, scenes of failure, wounds of yesterday that whisper. You cannot escape. But here too, the law gives you power, for you can change the past itself through the art of revision. Let me show you. And now, having seen the power of living in the end, we come to a mystery even greater, one that staggers the natural mind, and yet, once grasped, opens the door to a freedom so vast, it is almost unspeakable. For not only is the future yours to shape, not only is the present yours to command, but the past itself is subject to your imagination. Yes, the past, that which the world insists is finished, sealed beyond recall. I tell you, it is not fixed. It is not dead. It lives. It breathes. It is still active. And because it is active, it can be changed. This is the great art of revision. You see, everything that has ever happened to you, every scene you have lived, every word spoken, every action taken, still exists within the great structure of consciousness. The past is not gone. It is alive, stored in the infinite memory of being. And because it exists in consciousness, it can be revisited and rewritten. The world believes that what is done, that mistakes are forever, that wounds can be healed but never erased. But I tell you, you can go back in imagination and alter the scene. And if you alter it in imagination, you alter it in fact. For imagination is the one reality. What it creates, it sustains. What it revises, it transforms. Consider what this means. Have you suffered humiliation in the past? Then go back in the silence of imagination and replay that scene as it should have been. See yourself standing strong where once you felt weak. Hear the words of praise where once you heard mockery. Feel the triumph where once you felt defeat. And do not merely think of it, live it, feel it, until the revised scene possesses all the tones of reality. In that moment, the subconscious accepts the revision as fact, and the entire structure of your life begins to rearrange itself to reflect the new past. This is not theory. This is law. I have seen it proven countless times. A woman once told me of an argument with a dear friend that ended in years of silence. She carried guilt. She carried regret. And yet she could not bring herself to reach out. I instructed her to revise. That night she went back in imagination to the scene of the quarrel. But this time she heard herself speaking words of kindness, saw her friend respond with laughter, felt the warmth of reconciliation. She fell asleep in that revised scene. And in the morning she awoke lighter, freer, knowing within herself that something had changed. Within days, a letter arrived from that very friend, written as though no quarrel had ever occurred. The past had been rewritten, and the fruit of the new scene blossomed in the present. Do you see the power this gives you? You are not a prisoner of what has been. You are not condemned to carry the weight of yesterday's failures. You are free to go back, free to forgive, free to restore, free to create a new past, and therefore a new present. For if the past lies in consciousness, then to change consciousness is to change the past itself. And because your present is built upon the foundation of that past, when you revise the foundation, the whole house must change. So I urge you, do not let old memories torment you. Do not let regret bind you. Do not let wounds fester. Take them into imagination. Replay them, revise them, and let them be what they should have been. And as you do, you will find the burden lift, you will feel the joy return, and your outer world will bear witness to the new story. For what you revise within will be revised without. This is why I call imagination your redeemer. It redeems not only the future but the past. It cancels debts, erases wrongs, restores joy, heals relationships, and frees you from the tyranny of time. Truly, though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Revision is the washing, the cleansing, the renewing of life. It is the power to say, I am not what I was, and I never was what I thought I was. For in imagination, I have chosen a new past, and therefore I live a new present. And now you begin to see the scope of this law, not only your future, not only your past, but all of life is subject to imagination. Yet the senses cry out against it, the outer world mocks and denies it. And here you face the greatest test of all. Will you remain loyal to the unseen reality, or will you bow to the evidence of the senses? This is the test of faith. And now we come to the battlefield, where every soul must fight, the place where the law is either proven or abandoned, the place where men either rise as gods or sink again into the sleep of ignorance. For it is one thing to hear that imagination creates reality. It is one thing to know that consciousness is the only reality. But it is another thing entirely to hold fast to that truth when the world screams its denial. This is the trial of faith. For faith is nothing more than loyalty to the unseen reality, the steadfast confidence that what you have assumed in imagination is more real than what the senses behold. Faith is vision that looks not at the things that are seen, but at the things that are unseen, knowing that the seen is temporary and passing, but the unseen is eternal. Doubt is the great enemy, the whispering voice that says, look around you. It is not working. You are fooling yourself. Be reasonable. Accept the facts. And if you heed that voice, if you allow yourself to bow before the outer evidence, then the seed you planted in imagination is torn up before it can take root. Doubt is the thief that comes to steal and destroy, not because it has any real power, but because you have consented to it. Faith, on the other hand, is the guardian of the seed. Faith holds it in the soil of the subconscious, waters it with persistence, shields it from the storms of appearances, until in due season the harvest comes. Think of the farmer. He plants his seed in the ground, and he does not dig it up the next morning to see if it has sprouted. He trusts the Lord. He knows the soil will do its work. He goes about his day in confidence, for he understands the process. So it must be with you. When you assume the wish fulfilled, when you feel it real in imagination, you have planted the seed. Faith is the refusal to dig it up with doubt. Faith is the quiet confidence that though you see nothing yet, it is already accomplished in the unseen, and the world of facts will catch up. Do you not see how essential this is? Without faith, you are tossed about like a ship without a rudder, carried by every wave of circumstance. With faith, you stand firm, unshaken, unmoved, for you know that appearances are only the old harvest, and that the new seed you have planted must come. Faith is not straining, not forcing, not trying to believe against your will. Faith is rest. Faith is the ease of knowing that the law cannot fail, that what you have felt in imagination is already true, already real, already finished. Faith is the ability to say, it is done, even when the senses deny it. And I tell you, your faith in God is measured by your confidence in yourself. For God is not outside you. God is your own I am. To doubt yourself is to doubt God. To believe in yourself is to honor God. So let every doubt fall away. Let every fearful whisper be silenced. Stand firm in the conviction that what you have imagined is real, that what you have felt is fact, that what you have assumed is already yours. For if you will hold that faith, the world must bend, the evidence must shift, the desire must take form. Faith is the victory, doubt is the defeat. Choose faith, and you shall never fail. But how do we hold faith? How do we keep from falling into doubt when the senses mock us day after day, The answer is found in the conversations we carry within ourselves, the inner speech that runs like a hidden current beneath our days. Guard this, and you guard your faith. And here lies the secret battleground of faith, not in the loud declarations you make when you are inspired, not in the affirmations you speak for a moment before the mirror, but in the ceaseless current of inner speech that flows beneath the surface of your day. For it is not what you say with your lips that shapes your destiny. It is what you whisper to yourself in the silence of the mind. That constant dialogue, that hidden conversation, that endless murmuring of the heart, this is the prayer that never ceases. And the world, being nothing but your consciousness objectified, faithfully echoes back to you the content of that speech. Most men are careless with their inner words. They imagine in one moment that they are wealthy. They affirm in one breath that they are loved. And yet the rest of the day they argue within themselves about their poverty. They complain silently about their loneliness. They rehearse in secret the very states they wish to escape. And then they wonder why nothing changes, why their faith seems powerless, why their desires remain unfulfilled. But I tell you, your outer life is nothing but the visible form of your inner conversations. Change the conversation, and the world must change. Continue the same conversation, and the world cannot help but remain as it is. So if you would hold faith, if you would remain loyal to the unseen reality, you must guard your inner speech as the most precious treasure, for it is the seed of every harvest. This is what I call the mental diet. Just as the health of your body depends on the food you consume, so the health of your world depends on the thoughts you entertain, the words you allow to take root in the silence of your being. If you feed on complaints, fears, and doubts, then your life will be filled with their fruit. But if you feed on thanksgiving, joy, and the confident declaration of the wish fulfilled, then your life will shine with freedom and abundance. Do not think this is a small matter. It is everything. For inner speech is imagination in action. Every time you rehearse a scene in your mind, every time you repeat a phrase in silence, every time you dwell on an image with emotion, you are planting seeds in the soil of the subconscious.